Welcome back to HTO. What an evening. What an evening indeed. The sun's been shining and Gareth has been delivering some big news. Literally a couple of hours ago, the final England squad was announced. Obviously, we had this sort of 33-man squad. 7 players have been cut for the final 26. We're going to run you through our England 11s for that opening fixture in what, sort of 12 days' time. Tournament's kicking off in 10 days' time. Exciting times. If you've not seen the news, I'm sure you have. The 7 players that were cut were Ramsdale, Watkins, Ward-Prowse, Greenwood, Lingard, White and Godfrey. No huge surprises, Tim?
I guess the only surprise was that all 4 right-backs were involved. It was quite funny, actually. We did a tweet earlier on in the week of running a poll which one was to be left out, and Gareth had something else planned. But I think that says a lot about possibly the formation that I don't think I'm too keen on if he is going to go with like the wing backs. But no, I think that was the main surprise, really. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, same. But it's weird because I look at that 7, and obviously Greenwood suspected sort of injury being pulled out, because otherwise that may not be the case. But you know, it feels about right in terms of quality of player.
Yeah,
you can't really look at any of those 4 right backs and think, oh, one of them deserves to be left behind. They've all had great, I say all had great seasons. Trent had a slow start to the season. The last 3 months, he's been phenomenal, and we know what talent he is. So for me, they're 4 quality footballers. But will they all get on the pitch? Probably not. Whatever Gareth wants to say about different positions and how he looks at them as 4 good footballers that can play anywhere. The reality is they're right backs by trade, and they're not all going to play. So it'll be really interesting to see how he lines up. And obviously we're gonna say that tonight, folks. Obviously you're listening, but if you've not subscribed, jump onto @HTO Football on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the like, on all your favourite podcast platforms, whether that be Apple, Spotify. We are there. So jump on, listen to this and other podcasts, of course. But the big one is we're going to run you through our England 11s. It's the first game. It's Croatia. It's a huge game, monumental game. It's actually a pretty difficult game, isn't it? And, I think getting the right 11 is going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just to clarify for listeners as well, we are definitely not trying to get in Gareth's head here. These are Tom and Andrew's select 11s. We're not trying to sort of gate crash, Southgate's plans at all.
I am completely comfortable with the fact that, and we could muse on that at the very end of the pod, but there's absolutely no chance Gareth goes for the 11s that we were going to present. Mine, I know he's not going to go for, but you know what? That's why it's our squads, and you can all have your own 11s. So when we post them on Twitter, we don't need all that outrage. We need supportive England voices.
Be kind.
Be kind. Be kind, ladies and gentlemen. Who have you got in goal?
I think this is probably one of the very few positions that we're going to have slight difference of opinion on. It's a shame. I mean, I've said before, I'd like to have Pope in goal, but that's not going to happen, obviously. So I'll have Pickford, just purely based on the fact that I think he's been more regular this season and good shot stopper. Just ahead of Henderson, really. But to be honest, either of those, I don't think there's much to choose from. I'm not massively enamoured with our goalkeeping choices, really, at the moment in this country. I actually think it's probably the weakest area of the pitch for me.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout actually as our sort of weakest link, because I don't see much wrong. I think we'll talk about central midfield shortly, and that could be another area where we're probably slightly lacking, but nonetheless, goalkeeper, you're absolutely right. I would go for Nick Pope if he was fit. He's not, but even Nick Pope, I think he's the best all-round keeper, but I don't think he's special. I basically think we're lacking a true England number 1 that can be there for the next 10 years. I wouldn't mind seeing any of the 3. I think Sam Johnson had a really good season, actually. He's another really good shot stopper. I think ceiling-wise, in terms of potential, I have gone Henderson. Let's park the goalkeepers, because frankly, I think the less said, the better about our goalkeepers. Basically, we're going to be so good and we're going to have 99.9% of possession that he never has to face any shots anyway, because the rest of the 11 that we pick is going to be so brilliant. Who have you got in your back line?
Well, we alluded to earlier about the 4 right backs being involved, and that might give us a hint as to Gareth wanting to go for a 3-5-2 formation. But in my 11, I'd like a back 4, and it does mean that the sort of the Trent hype falls on deaf ears really in my team, because I wouldn't put him in my 11. I'd play Walker at right back, because I think in a 4, I think he's probably more reliable defensively. But I know that he can obviously play as a right centre back as well if we do go for the 3. But I'd go for Walker at right back, Shaw at left back, with obviously Stones and Maguire, Touchwood if he's fit. That would be my 4. But I can see why he's included James as well, and all the other right backs, because I think that he's going to look at that as a 3 centre back option really.
It will be really
that would be my back 4.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see how he goes. He's obviously spoke about Trent potentially being can play midfield. Like you said, Walker. For me, Walker and James have quite similar profiles. They can kind of play that sort of right centre back, right back, a little bit of a right wing back kind of player. I don't think potentially as good as a Trent in a wing back position for obvious reasons, for his final delivery and pace in the final third. I am also going for a back 4 though. On the left, I've also gone Shaw. What are your thoughts over Chilwell? So we've both gone Shaw. For me, the reason being, I think Shaw's just that slightly more solid defensively. I think Chilwell's obviously had a great end to the season with Chelsea in terms of going and win the Champions League. But he has been a little bit in and out of that team across the whole campaign. I think people forget that. And Shaw's been immensely solid for Man United. And am I right in saying he's player of the year? I think so. Certainly up there, if not. But I think he was. And he's just had a great season. I just don't see him letting us down. I'm also, as we were about to discuss, gone for quite a young, attacking, quite open front side of the pitch. So actually, I'll probably go for the better defensive fullback there. I think, look, no brainer. I think everyone will be picking the same centre back pairing. If they're fit, that will obviously be Maguire and Stones. Now, right back is an interesting one. Not only is there 4, but I've been absolutely set on that my right back being Kyle Walker. I've actually changed my mind in this 11, and I am going to put Trent for 2 reasons. One reason is class is permanent. The former temporary class is permanent. He's got a special talent. People saw last season, not the season just gone, but how good he can be. He's how many right backs and match winners? I'm not sure, but he's one of them. And I also just think when he gets to the international tournament, I'm a big believer, and I'm sure I'll repeat this to myself in a minute, so apologies in advance. I'm a big believer in it's 7 games. You've got to go win 7 games to win the tournament. And he's going to have the bit between his teeth now. He's had all these people chirping that he's going to get dropped from the squad. All these people saying, he's not going to make it, not going to be picked. And suddenly he's in the squad. The last 2 months he's been flying. And he could win us some games. He could be an absolute monster in that position. So it's more of a punt, and I've been set on Kyle Walker for the last few weeks. But now he's made the squad, I'm thinking to play him then. I don't think you take someone with the talent of Trent Alexander-Arnold and you either play him or you don't take him. And for me, now he's picked him, I'm thinking so I didn't play him. But like I said, I've changed my mind late there, so I'm sure I'll get pelters.
I think it depends. I like my worry with Trent playing in a 4 would be that if Trent's on the right hand side and obviously Stone's playing as the right centre back in that 4 as well, that just slightly concerns me. That could be a little bit vulnerable about that part of the pitch. But I'd also like the idea of having Walker there as you've got your 2 Manchester City right-sided players and then United on the other side.
Yeah, I like the double pairing is nice.
And I do like that combination and that familiarity as well. But
and Manchester,
it's going to be interesting to see what that Croatia, that starting 11, because I think we're all going to be debating that right-sided defence up until kick-off, aren't we? Or
we
until
are.
the teams come out.
We are, but ironically, Like, I think they're all, to be fair, and we've not even mentioned Trippier, he's had a great season winning the La Liga with Atletico under, let's be honest, probably the best defensive manager in the world football in Diego Simeone. So you can't rule him out. And it's interesting because it's got a lot of the chat for obvious reasons because there's 4 of them. But unlike other areas of the pitch, frankly, I think they're all good players. All 4 of them are really top right backs. So actually, although we've got preferences and it's caught a lot of the chat, it's probably not where the most important discussion should be, because now we're moving up, because frankly, you can play any of them and they'll probably do a good job. Whereas, to be fair, I think it's the midfield where it gets really interesting, really tasty, because you could argue that there's many different systems, but also potentially some deficiencies in there. Who have you got? Who are nailed on? It's difficult to go left from right or anything like that with midfield because we might play different systems. You got any nailed on ones that we're going to agree on?
Yeah, I think the way the 3 look in ours are slightly different in terms of positionally, which we'll sort of talk about when we sort of reveal the personnel. But I think obviously Declan Rice has to be nailed on in that defensive role. I don't think that he's going to be if he's alongside someone like a Phillips or a Henderson, possibly. But I think Rice starts guaranteed.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's had a very good season at West Ham. I think he's not true CDM, but he basically is a defensive midfielder. And I think he sits there. I really like him. I'm really impressed. Now, what I'd love alongside him is a sort of a brilliant deep line playmaker, a baller, basically, for lack of a better technical term. Like a Modric at his best, which is ironic, given who we're playing, but at his very best, a Tony Cruz, that kind of player. And interestingly, you threw a tweet out earlier about who would England bring back if we could bring back one player, but someone like a Paul Scholes, that sort of not quite box to box, but just sort of can sit alongside just ahead of a central defensive midfielder and kind of dictate pace, ping balls left and right, a Xavi. The reality is we don't have that player. We don't have him. And so for me, I'm taking a bit of a punt, and it's a massive punt, and Southgate will not start this person. But I would look at playing Jude Bellingham in there, who's
I mean, if you listen to Gareth's comments earlier, I think he could be in contention. I mean, Gareth was being very, very complimentary, mentioning like in the last few days in training, he's been incredibly impressed. I think his performances in the Champions League as well, playing at that level against City, particularly over the 2 legs and looking that good and that comfortable. I actually think some of the skills that you mentioned earlier with Scholes, don't get me wrong, they're completely different players, but some of those attributes you mentioned, I think Jude Bellingham has them in abundance, and they're going to only get better. He's got great legs, great energy, can get around the pitch, can defend, can pass. I think he could be the perfect foil for Rice. I know he's only 17, but this is a kid that I think could really, really surprise us at this tournament. And he makes my 11 as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a big believer of, if you don't have the obvious choice, why not take a bit more of a gamble? It's not like you are benching a prime Paul Scholes to bring in Jude Bellingham. You're not taking that kind of risk. The other options are maybe a Calvin Phillips or a Jordan Henderson who's not kicked a ball in anger since February. So it's not like you are replacing someone who should be starting with this bit of a gamble. The gamble, therefore, has far more upside than it does downside. For me, play him, see how he goes. It doesn't mean he has to play 90 minutes of every single game we're in the tournament, but give it a try. I think he has got more of those attributes than anyone else. And who's making your final sort of person in that? Is it a trio for you in that kind of?
Yeah. It's a 3 with obviously Rice sitting and then Bellingham to the right and Mount to the left.
A Mount, okay.
Yeah.
So for me, not that Mount doesn't start. We'll get to that in a second. I'd probably play Grealish just in that advanced hole. That number 10, that sort of 10 role, just ahead of those 2. I think he can drop deeper, link play with those 2 really well. He created, I can't remember the actual stats, but more chances than anyone else in the Premier League by miles before he got injured. Absolutely chief creator. So he's starting for me. And actually, I'm playing Mount in a more out wide on the right, not quite right side, but right side of midfield, especially with my Trent selection at right back. So that's also why is that, because I know Mount's going to be cutting in and he's not going to be hugging the byline by any means, and I don't want him to. But that's why you've got Trent on the overlap. That's why I'm going Trent, which does leave me short at the back. I know that. But in terms of if Trent's bombing on, suddenly you've got 6 of them because Mount can tuck in. And for me, that's a really, really attractive option there on the right-hand side.
Well, this is where I think Bellingham is crucial as well, because if you've got, Kyle Walker likes to bomb on as well. So in my 11, there's the same risk there as well. He likes to get forward, and I think Bellingham's role there is crucial. Covering across like Fernandinho does for City. That kind of like getting out there quickly and stopping the supply line down the channel. But I'm not playing with a 10, and I'm not sure if many sides will in this tournament. I've got Mount as a joining in a 3 in midfield, and then I'm playing Grealish from the left, Foden from the right, and obviously with the main man up front. And we've said this before. We mentioned this the other day, like off air, about the lack of pace in our sides, which is a slight concern. And I think we know that. But I think with all the attacking ability and flair on that pitch in that team, surely there's going to be chances created. And also you've got 2 very quick fullbacks as well, which help.
Yeah, completely. So look, we've basically got the same personnel then. I've got Foden on that wide left kind of piece where he's been playing for City, playing incredibly well for City. We can't wax too lyrical about the guy. I think we both love him. I think Phil Foden could play anywhere along that front line and in midfield. He'd be the best player on the pitch. I think that highly of him. But for me, he's going to start where he's been just absolutely tearing it up at City in the last few months on that left. Like I said, I'd imagine quite fluid between Grealish and Mount in my side. And then Trent sort of bombing on to become almost that right-sided midfielder option. And then what actually you could have you sort of Rice dropping deeper, and then you're sort of tucking in and having that sort of free at the back row anyway. So for me, it's same, and obviously it's a no-brainer. It's Kane up front. So basically, the only discrepancies in our team is different goalkeeper, but that we don't really care. We don't really care who gets picked. Different right and different right back.
Which I think is going to be a common theme in everyone's predictions anyway.
Yeah, it could be. A lot of people are still going Sancho, for example, on that right berth, which I hear. I'm not adverse to that. If you look at Sancho's numbers, he's not had the season he's had last year quite.
I'm a fan of Sancho, but out of Sancho, Sterling, Rashford, for me, not for me, but as in if I'm thinking of trying to get into Gareth's head for a second here, I actually think Sancho would be the last option out of those 3 to sort of, when he looks on that bench.
It's interesting. Have you seen the official numbers of the post? It bloody reads like 11, and Rashford and Sterling have that sort of those shirts. And I'll tell you what, I would actually be a fan of playing Rashford or Sterling because of that lack of pace if either of them were in form. Unfortunately, both are bang out of form. They look woeful at the moment, and that is, for me, that is a low key, that's an issue, because I do tend to think that I would like one of them playing. I think they offer something different, particularly if you're looking at Raheem Sterling. I think, that the role that Pep turned him into, not necessarily this season, but last season and the year before, sort of being in behind, almost poaching, but with serious pace. And we are kind of lacking that in that front line. So in my mind, I would love one of them to be absolutely flying. They're not. But it's interesting that they've got the number 10 shirt, Raheem Sterling, and number 11 shirt, Marcus Rashford, in the official squad numbers. Don't read too much into it, of course, but it's just very interesting that Jordan Pickford 1, Kyle Walker 2, Luke Shaw 3, Declan Rice 4, Stones 5, Maguire, Grealish 7. They've all got the proper shirts. Do you know what I mean? Jordan 8, Harry Kane 9, and Sterling and Rashford, as I said, in 10, 11. It's very interesting for me that they're given the shirt numbers of their actual positions. If they were a bit all over the place, all of them, then I wouldn't read anything too selfish.
Maybe Gareth's taken us back to the 90s days when 1 to 11 was a thing.
Oh, I love that. I would love that back in a real world.
Really interesting, actually. I was looking at it. Obviously, the last time England and Scotland were paired together in a European Championship, so it was obviously 96. And the starting 11. Do you remember the starting 11 for the first game against Switzerland?
What, in Euro 96?
Yeah, who was the 11 against Switzerland?
I wouldn't be able to tell you the whole 11, but I'll try and name as many as I can.
Yeah, how many you can get?
This is off the cuff. You've done me here. Obviously Seaman.
Yep.
Pierce.
Yep.
Adams.
Yep.
I'll just name. I won't. I'll come back to players. Ince.
Yep.
Shearer.
Yep.
Anderton.
Yep.
Sheringham.
Yep.
We're getting there now. Neville.
Yeah.
Right back. Sorry, can't believe I thought it was right back. Who would have? McManaman would have played on the left.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Two more.
I've done all right.
Well, you're missing a couple of stars of the show.
You put me on the spot. The thing is, you put me on the spot here. Otherwise, if England lineup, do you know what I mean? Euro '96, when I'm 10 years old, obviously presume Gascoigne would have made it. But
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of the centre back, to be honest with you, who would have paired with Tony Adams.
This is hilarious. The only one you've missed. The gaffer.
Oh, of course. That is so unbelievable. It's Gareth Southgate. It's Pizza Hut himself. You see what I mean? Actually, the reality is I'd have got that 11 quite easily if you hadn't thrown me on the spot. I think I did all right there.
Oh, man, and a lovely little sub appearance from Steve Stone.
Yeah, Steve Stone.
Those were the days.
Tell you got minutes in that tournament as well was David Platt. Good player.
Yeah, he came on in that game as well.
We were talking about that sort of baller in midfield. He was a good footballer. David Platt. He was a very good footballer.
Hopefully the result's better though.
Yeah, no, quite.
That was a little bit of a damp squid, and then obviously they sort of turned it on for Scotland and Holland, didn't they?
4-1 against Holland was one of my most watched VHS tapes. You know, the goal that goes across from all of them and then Shearer blasts it in like Sharon.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of my early England memories.
Yeah, completely. And obviously Gaz's goal against Scotland, you can't,
etched in the mind.
Yeah, completely. And then, just what a player. And in a way, almost more special because of his faults. If you look at the tears, you look at the missed slide against Germany when the ball's so close, you look at, obviously, unfortunately, the issues he had off the field. Yeah, impressive. Should we read a couple of tweets up? You actually tweeted something along those lines. Who would we have?
We asked our followers if you could add one retired England player, obviously put them back in their prime for the Euros this summer. Who would you take? And we've had lots of replies. So there's a few names that have popped up on a few occasions, and even more specifically, a lot of people were putting a prime Rooney in brackets 2004 Euros, which I don't think we can disagree with. But I would, for this one, I think there's got to be a little bit of consideration of the squad that we've got right now as well. Like, for example, I don't think we need a Rooney. That sounds a bit dramatic, but with Kane, Foden, Grealish, I don't know if we need that player. I'd be tempted.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Don't get me wrong. He would play. He would start because he's as good as he is. He's going to play a prime Rooney or whatever. But I think you're right. There's other positions we need more. People will get much maligned towards the end of his career. A prime David Seaman right now, Euro '96 Seaman who goes and saves penalties against Spain and goes to save penalties against Scotland. That right now versus we just said.
For me, Seaman's my pick, but we've got a tweet in from Stephen Graham that makes a good point. Seaman will struggle with the ball at his feet. It's got to be a centre back because we are weak there. Probs Rio, not a bad shout.
Rio. I mean, some people have thrown it sort of a bit further back. All things gone. Bobby Charlton and Jimmy Greaves. Bobby Charlton wouldn't be a bad one as well. We're talking about the central mid pairing for Declan Rice. Imagine Declan Rice just slightly laying it off and then Bobby Charlton charging through the midfield. That would be not too special. That wouldn't be too bad. I like Dan Sutcliffe's suggestion though. Neville, because we need more depth at right back. Obviously a bit of a tongue in cheek there. There's a few good ones. A couple of shouts for Shearer, Craig. Alex has gone Gerrard. Again, Gerrard wouldn't be a bad one, would he? Next to Declan Rice, my word. I think, to be fair to Steven Gerrard, people remember him as this all-action guy who could score from 35 yards, because of course he was, but absolute fantastic dictator of play as well. Yeah, passing range.
Reply from a regular Chris Kelly who tweets in, centre-back is where we lack depth and perhaps leadership. Therefore, I'd choose Tony Adams or Sol Campbell, but that's going to go down well on HTO. Being big Arsenal fans, I'd be all over that. Obviously, you can make a case for Rooney, Barnes, Lineker, Scholes, Becks, etc. But we do have an array of attacking talent anyway. And that's true, really. We
do, but his John Barnes shout is a really interesting one. John Barnes, you could argue, never really defined himself in an England shirt the level of talent should have done. We are talking arguably about a player that was ahead of his time for English football, John Barnes. And although we have an array of attacking talent, what we do not have is a winger in our squad in England.
I think his best England performance was in front of a microphone for World Emotion.
Well, that too. That too. But if you looked at that player in the Liverpool side, he's a phenomenon. The talent level's off the chart. And I'm not saying he's a winger of byline and whip a ball in, but he would have played wider than any of a Foden or a Mount or a Grealish would. And he was such a talent. I wouldn't mind seeing him in a modern shirt as well. Because some players you can just see them playing in the modern game. And John Barnes would have been one of them. A very, very good footballer. Interesting stuff. So look, what we'll do though, Tim, what we should do is we'll put those 11s on some sort of app, basically like an 11 shirts against the names. So we can tweet that, get people's views. Again, be kind. There are 11s, not Southgate's. I need to play around with my positional, I think, and actually where they'll play, because I just threw the names on there as opposed to thought too much about where they'll play. And get your thoughts. Tweet in your 11. It may well change ahead of the game. A, because of injuries. B, because there's a couple of friendlies. And C, just because we're flaky and we may change our minds. Mainly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're sort of a couple of weeks away now. It's probably going to change a couple of times.
Yeah,
so,
not off. What we'll do as well, we're also going to jump on a pod in a couple of days' time and do our predictions of who will qualify from the group stages. I think a lot of them are kind of no-brainers, but there's a couple of groups of death in there, a couple of tough calls. So we'll get our very much armchair views of that rather than specialism. I've not sort of swatted up on my Danish and Estonian football just yet, but we'll see what we can do. Keep listening, keep tweeting in, let us know your England 11s, and hopefully we look good in the friendlies, and obviously football's coming home.
Yeah, it's coming home.
It's coming home.
That was my line.
Yeah, it's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming home.